Okay, so let's talk about circles, right? If I'm going to draw a circle, one thing I'm going to want to do is create a center or a fixed point, and then I'm going to want to basically create a distance, and then using that distance, let's say 4 units of 4 distance, I want to create another, basically create a set of points that will have the, I don't even know if you can, equidistant measure from that center. And by doing so, I basically created a set of points that's equidistant from a center. And that's basically the idea of a circle, the idea of equidistance, a center, and a set of points. Now from that circle, you could come up with a couple different measurements. One being, if I took a student and I put them here and told them to walk the boundary of this circle and return back to its origin, right? Basically, I've had this student walk around the perimeter of this circle. Problem is, it's different than finding, let's say, the perimeter of a rectangle. And in which case I could just add the sides. There are no sides. So how do I add a set of points? Well, the understanding is that this circle continues to go endlessly. And in order to signify that, we use pi. And in order to say that this person has gone all the way around the circle, and one thing you'll run into, especially when you get to Algebra 2 and pre-calc, is this idea is this is a full unit. 2 pi is a full unit. And in order to determine the distance around this full unit of a circle, we have to use a radius. And when we deal with circles, that's called a circumference. Let me put that down here so you can see it. And this is basically the circle's version of a perimeter. And the one thing to understand is that in order to solve for that, let's say my perimeter is 8. I would do 2 times pi times 8, and I would get 16 pi. And if I wanted to get a numerical version of this, I could just multiply by 3.14. But basically, the idea is to go around this circle, I would have to go to a distance, let's say 16 times 3 is 30, 18. It's about, I don't know, maybe 51. Let's just say feet. That it would, if this were in feet, this person to walk around this circle, keeping a distance of 8 feet around a point, it would take them about 51 feet to do so. Now there is another point on or another line that can be drawn on a circle from one point through the center to another point of a circle, and we call this here a diameter. Now, if you look at this, you see that this diameter is actually made up of 2 radius. So you could say that 2 radius equals 1 diameter. So if you did 2 times 8, you would get a diameter of 16. I bring this to your attention so that you could kind of see that, oh wait, my diameter was also present in my circumference. So another way you could write circumference is just simply by writing diameter times pi, because you understand that 2r equals diameter, and here's that 2r. So here's basically your two formulas for circumference. And remember, that's measuring the outside of a circle. So let's move forward to the next step of that. Let's look at, well, what if I want to look at the inside of the circle? Maybe I want to identify the area inside this circle. If I need to cover this area, what would that take? Well, in order to do that, you would have to use only use your radius, because that's the only way to really look at an area of a circle in a sense where if you were finding the area of a square, you would say, okay, 4 squared, that's an area of 16. It'd be like you wouldn't take a diagonal of that square to find the area of it, just like you wouldn't take the diameter. You're basically taking this object, and it would be like if you had a nail and a piece of rope and a student, and they walked around this circle carrying this rope, how much area would they cover? So I can use a radius, let's say let's just use the radius of 8 again. And I could say, okay, this circle has a radius of 8. So if this person's carrying an 8-foot rope and they walked in a circle, keeping that distance of 8 feet, then they would cover an area. And we use the pi symbol to basically make sure we're talking about that circle shape. And my area here would be 64 pi. This symbol is what gives us the circle shape. Right? That's basically saying like 64 times a circle. And you could go on a calculator and multiply by 3.14. 3 times 60, 180. 3 times 4, 12. Let's just say 192. Let's just round. This would be about this would cover about 200 feet. All this here would be about 200 feet. Now, some questions you might run into, especially when dealing with a SAT, is that, in most questions you'll see, they're not going to just give you the radius and say, what is my area and circumference? What they'll do is they'll say, your area is 81 pi, and they'll ask, what's your diameter? And because your understanding is, in order to find area, I have to do pi r squared, you're saying to yourself, what number squared equals 81? Well, to solve for that, you could take a square root and understand that it would be 9. So basically, if I had 81 squares in here, 9 times 9, that repeated multiplication would give me 81. So basically, I understand now my radius is 9, and because I know 2 times radius equals diameter, I know my diameter is equal to 18. So now you can start to fill out parts of your circle. This would be 18, this would be 9. And then I could use this diameter to find a circumference, because remember, circumference equals diameter times pi, or 2 pi r. So I could say my circumference is 18 pi, meaning a person would take about 18 pi feet to get around the circle. They could also tell you, for a circle like this, that their circumference is, let's say, 20 pi. And they could ask for your diameter, your radius, and your area. Well, you know, circumference is equal to diameter times pi. So I know my diameter is 20. I know my radius is half my diameter, so my radius is 10. And then I know my area is pi r squared, pi times 10 squared, so I could get 100 pi. So I could take my circumference and get a diameter, take a diameter, get a radius, and from a radius get an area. That's something you should be able to do. You should be able to take any of these 4 pieces and be able to find all the other 3 pieces of a circle. You may run into some questions where they'll tell you circumference is equal to like 200.16, something like that. Notice that the result is not given in pi. Where's the pi here, right? It's missing. So what you would do is, you know, circumference is 2 pi r, so you would actually divide by 2, or in this case, let me say the first thing you would do, let's just say it's diameter pi. If you want to find what diameter is, all you would do is just divide by pi, and you would need a calculator to do that. And by doing that, you eliminate the pi on the one side, and you're able to solve for what diameter is. The same thing would go for if you were given area is equal to, like, I don't know, 114.16. Well, you know area is pi r squared, so set that equal to 114.16. Divide both sides by pi, and then you'll get r squared to the result of this, and then you would just take the square root of that result. So sometimes if it's left in decimal form, that's what you see, and you don't see the pi is nowhere to be found, then make sure you're going to divide by pi to start. That's what you know, most of the time even out your equation for you.